That propaganda. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Overstock of WeAreChange here right now in Washington, D.C., speaking at the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. But as you know, the news cannot stop, and today, holy cow, is a huge news day. And as you know, as you've been probably watching this YouTube channel, we've been telling you that tensions between China and the United States are going to rise and only intensify. And they are very intense as of now, and they're only going to get worse from here, which we're going to be talking about in this video with the latest specifics. We're also going to be talking about the larger potential disastrous merger between Silicon Valley and the military-industrial complex that is also happening in major significant ways right now. CNN hiring a disgraced FBI agent on the heels of the Overstock CEO coming out with explosive allegations against the FBI. And then, of course, we're going to end it talking about no one other than the biggest eye-opening story of them all, Kim Kardashian. No, I'm joking. We're going to be talking about Jeffrey Epstein. On, of course, an independent media channel that is supported by you and your viewership, including you purchasing our merchandise, which you could do on our Teespring store, wearing a message on your shirt that hopefully could make some sheeple think while supporting independent media at the same time. Now, the biggest news, the major turning stone that happened today is the deteriorating, I would say the continuing of the deteriorating situation diplomatically, especially economically, that is happening between the United States and China, as Donald Trump tweeted today a very strong message asking who is the biggest enemy, the Federal Reserve or China, saying specifically, and I quote, "Our country has lost stupidly trillions of dollars with China over many years. They have stolen our intellectual property at a rate of hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and they want to continue. I won't let that happen. We don't need China, and frankly, would be far better off without them. The vast amount of money made and stolen by China from the United States year after year for decades will and must stop. Our great American companies are hereby ordered to immediately start looking for an alternative to China, including bringing your companies home and making your products in the USA. I will be responding to China's tariffs this afternoon. This is a great opportunity for the United States. Also, I am ordering all carriers, including FedEx, Amazon, UPS, and the Post Office, to search for and refuse all deliveries of fentanyl from China or anywhere else. Fentanyl kills hundreds, thousands Americans a year. President Xi said this would stop. It didn't. Our economy, because of our gains in the last 2.5 years, is much larger than that of China. We will keep it that way." And wow, this is a major declaration. This is a major stepping stone, especially in U.S. foreign policy, especially diplomatically. And of course, this is all on the heels of China retaliating with tariffs on U.S. goods and even resuming previous auto tariffs that were suspended before, slapping an estimated 5 to 10% of a tax on $75 billion worth of U.S. goods. Also resuming a 25% tariff on U.S. cars and a 5% on auto parts and components. And this is huge. This is major news here that will have severe economic ramifications, as of course Donald Trump is ordering American companies to immediately start looking for alternatives to China. The yuan has been negatively affected by this, so has the U.S. stock market. And I think it's also important to highlight here that both economies, the Chinese and the American, are filled with major bubbles. They're economies that are artificially kept going and are largely indebted and also, importantly, largely dependent on each other, especially on the world market. But of course, there have been many separations being made in preparation for this years beforehand, which we have been covering on this YouTube channel. But expect this problem to get worse from here. As I say this, not only because there's economic differences between the United States and China, but also geopolitical differences, as of course China is angered by U.S. militarism and its flexing of its military might and muscles, specifically about the man-made islands that China has created for better geopolitical posturing, with Beijing recently issuing very strong statements against the U.S. military because they recently sailed with their warships through the Taiwan Strait. As we also know, the protests in Hong Kong are also continuing, with a very large demonstration that showed a 28-mile human chain across Hong Kong, which of course the Chinese are not happy about, but their accounts, their versions of their story of what's happening in Hong Kong is actually being banned by Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, spurring many people in mainland China to point the finger at the United States. Even many important government officials in China pointing the finger directly at Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell for what they say is, quote, inciting chaos in Hong Kong by supporting the major protest movement that is happening in that territory right now. Now, what's really interesting is to see these politicians, especially in the United States, criticize China for what could be categorized as a control grid center, with even having lip-reading technology with their social credit score that is expanding and soon will have a rating on every single citizen, where now one street camera will be available in that country for every 2 people. But what's really interesting is that we know about this kind of surveillance state, but we really don't know about the one specifically in the United States, which brings us directly to this next story that is coming from a whistleblower and sheds light about the disastrous relationship for the general public that is emerging, the love fest that is emerging between Silicon Valley and the military-industrial complex, which of course we have been very critical of, which of course is not really mentioned in the U.S. mainstream media, but we have been exposing for a very long time. We have to understand, when we are looking at Silicon Valley, they have a very, very close relationship with what people would call the deep state. But again, U.S. intelligence agencies and also U.S. military-industrial complex organizations. Not only with just the seed funding from many of these organizations coming from these kind of secretive U.S. government agencies, but the relationship gets a lot cozier from there. As the Daily Mail has confirmed with a Defense Department spokesperson, that it was the former boss of Alphabet Google, Eric Schmidt, that was a part of a defense innovation board where he reportedly got to watch a Predator drone annihilate and blow up a, quote, adversary. And this is according to a whistleblower that is scrutinizing Silicon Valley's love obsession with the war machine, specifically on the heels of a $10 billion U.S. government contract that is deemed no one other than Jedi and will allegedly push a, quote, revolutionary cloud. Something, of course, that Donald Trump is very critical of, since, of course, Microsoft and Amazon are competing for that contract, and it looks like Amazon will actually get it. And again, we've been detailing the cozy relationship between Bezos and the CIA and the Pentagon for a very long time, not only implementing the latest technological advances, which again, people need to understand here. Jeff Bezos and the companies that he's a part of have literally built facial recognition technology for ICE. There's large criticisms against ICE and leftist liberal media, but I don't hear any calls of people letting go of their Amazon Primes. I don't see any criticism of Amazon. I see a lot of people pointing to other hick or homeless or stupid individuals as the problem. But why are we focusing on these larger institutions that are responsible for this, especially in the mainstream media, especially in the left-wing Democratic screeching, it's not even crying, screeching establishment about any criticism surrounding Amazon, which is dumbfounding to see, since anything connected to ICE other than Amazon is being heavily criticized. And again, this is not just about immigration. This is about the war machine, which is again going to be continuing, especially with tensions rising between China, Iran, even frickin' Iraq, with Israel launching its first airstrikes in that country in over 4 decades. just yesterday. And again, the New York Times, they talked about it a little bit, but the war industry has too much money. There's way too much to make on perpetual war with one of these biggest contracts ever, $10 billion, because war is big business. And when it's a business, it's inevitable. Chew on that for just a little bit, because those are the facts that we have to deal with as a society. And the mainstream media, the prostitutes, the horse stream media, they're the ones shilling for it. And that's why you never hear any criticism of it. And I would say that's why CNN, even recently, it's like they're bragging about it, especially here from Raccoon Eyes, Oliver Darcy here, bragging how CNN just signed a disgraced FBI agent who was fired for leaking and lying at least 4 times, including under oath, of course, for his highly political partisanship view, pushing the Russian collusion hoax. I guess now it makes sense that he's at CNN. Well, a disgraced big-time government liar hired by CNN. Why am I not surprised here? And by golly, this rag piece of trash, filth organization known as CNN should be ashamed of themselves, because they're doing this. They're doing this on the heels of the Overstock CEO coming out and saying that during the Russian collusion investigation, senior level bureau officials were encouraging the former now Overstock CEO to engage in political espionage, political blackmail, and to even have an affair with Maria Butina, the person who was alleged to be a Russian agent. Literally exposing a nefarious, illegal deep state within the FBI that was more set on political revenge rather than, of course, actual justice. Again, this is crazy. We have to understand here. The Overstock CEO is coming out and saying directly that he was given these orders by Peter Stork, another disgraced former FBI agent, and of course, concluding to a massive cover-up of their friends. And this is ridiculous. I actually met Patrick many times before, and to learn about this information, that he was essentially a snitch that was abused by the FBI, is absolutely mind-blowing. But at least now he's finally coming out and talking about the many of these abuses that happened by the, quote, Federal Bureau of Investigations. And people need to realize these are corrupt institutions. There's no reason people should trust them. And they were able, with the work of the mainstream media, to convince the general public to cheer on the FBI, to see them in some kind of heroic regard. Their history of COINTELPRO, their history of just doing the most immoral, illegal acts, and just in a moment they were able to literally mind control everyone through the mainstream media, that they were some kind of good guys. When will we realize that people predominantly don't change and institutions are corrupted from high up officials? And this is one of the reasons why I've been saying there won't be any real justice surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein case, as even Attorney General Barr just said recently he believes that somehow this man committed suicide, which is absolutely insane. But the case and investigation is still happening right now, and I think it's important to follow the details here as we're finding out that as many as 20 correction officers are being slapped with grand jury subpoenas in this specific case because many of them are not complying with the investigation. But now this is going to be pushed up towards a bigger legal battle, which we will see how it will turn out. But again, also, the attorney for 3 of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged victims, he even came out publicly recently and even saying that Epstein was murdered and that his information is coming from information from a, quote, prison source. And as we know, yesterday we were reporting to you how the former cellmate of Jeffrey Epstein was begging a judge to be transferred because he allegedly was also threatened to shut up. Again, everything here stinks to high heaven. This is a massive cover-up. It can't be more in your face. But stupid fat-faced Barr, whose father's connected to Epstein, still can't see that. the Attorney General is telling everybody, I do believe he committed suicide. It doesn't matter what you believe in, Attorney General Barr. Do your job. Stop coming to a conclusion before investigating. You're still supposed to be investigating. Why would the Attorney General Barr, who's in charge of this investigation under Donald Trump, specifically say, yeah, I don't think there's any foul play. I think he did commit suicide. What are you talking about? He didn't say that directly. He said he believed he committed suicide, but again, gosh, golly, the story is absolutely ridiculous. And there's more photos and there's more evidence finally coming out, even showing Jeffrey Epstein with Ghislaine Maxwell, by the way, who's staging photo ops and disinfo campaigns with movie productions in there and commercials in there. And there's new photos coming out with her and Jeffrey Epstein walking around with underage girls, children, underage children that they abused, just calmly walking the streets, with one of the alleged victims saying that, quote, if she left, she would be in big trouble, that Jeffrey Epstein knew that she was a witness to a lot of illegal and very bad behavior, and that, quote, if I left Epstein, he knew all kinds of powerful people. He could have had me killed or abducted, and I always knew he was capable of that if I did not obey him. And this is a monster that the mainstream media pushed and promoted because Jeffrey Epstein had powerful connections, and the mainstream media bowed down to him and many times ran puff pieces that were published, by the way, in Forbes, in Huffington Post, the National Review, and many other publications. And these prostitutes that promoted this pedophile, they still have blue check marks, and they're still promoted by, of course, the establishment as authoritative sources, while this independent media broadcast gets censored and demonetized. Every single video, last couple of videos, every single video automatically put up for review, automatically confirmed by manual review, destroying, of course, my income, my livelihood, and limiting the number of people that actually see this video. If you're watching a video and it's popular on YouTube, YouTube made it popular. YouTube decides what people see and don't see. Always remember that. But we got other news, specifically coming from Europe, where we are finding out that prosecutors in France are actually opening up another probe, as 10 witnesses have come forward claiming that Jeffrey Epstein committed crimes against children on French soil, with, of course, more latest photos of him coming out with underage children in that specific location. So yeah, that is the news for today. I hope you guys got your download. I always appreciate everyone who supports us, because if you weren't donating or buying t-shirts or using products we recommend, we wouldn't be here. And I'm only here because of you. And that's why I love you guys. Thank you again so much for allowing me to do this. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.